That was after a couple decades of really pounding the pavement to get anything. That one just fell into my lap because a previous show I had done, that one you mentioned, Head of the Class, that was on ABC. And two of my acting cronies on the show became very successful producers in their own rights. And they were creators of TV shows for Nickelodeon. Dan Snyder, in particular, created many shows, iCarly and such, and he co-created Kenan and Kel. And they came to me, Dan did, asking me if I knew anybody who was kind of like I don't know if you know this actor named Chris Elliott. He was well known on the David Letterman show. He was like a character would pop up. He'd be the guy under the stairs, and kind of a subversive, kind of edgy type of humor he did. And they were looking for that type of character originally to play Chris on Kenan and Kel. And so I am not particularly edgy. So um, so Dan just asked me, do you know anybody like that? Because he knew I was taking acting classes and I'm kind of doing a lot of theater in Los Angeles. So I know people. And I thought about it and I couldn't come up with anyone, but I said, I'll, give it some thought. And I went through my Rolodex in my head and I was not really coming up with anybody in particular. And then I kind of forgot about it and I figured it was already cast. And then a couple months later, Dan and I would hang out on occasion, and he said, "Can I pick you up? I want to show you a computer I'm looking at." I said, "Sure." And on the way, he goes, "Oh, Brian and we haven't really found anyone to play that character, but we think we have the perfect person." I went, "Oh, good. Anybody I know?" And he goes, "You." And I just laughed. I said, "What, really?" He goes, "Yeah. Do you want to do it?" So I was like, "Yeah, yes." And so that's kind of how it fell in my lap. I was not a shoe-in for the role. Obviously, they told me they looked at like 300 people for it before they kind of went, let's go with Dan because we know him and we think he could do it. So that's kind of how that fell into my lap. And then within, I'd say another couple weeks from that moment, I was from Los Angeles, flew to Orlando to tape the pilot. And actually, maybe the pilot we shot in Hollywood. I forget. But when we found, but it was picked up, and we shot the entire series in Orlando. Okay, now I'm remembering. There was no pilot. It was just we went right to series. And so the first 2 years were in Orlando, and the second 2 years we moved back here to Los Angeles, which I was happy about because I got to move back into my house after having rented it out, and that's kind of how it went. As a stand-up comedian, to have a live audience um, and get laughs every week, it was just a dream. It was just adrenaline rush. It was a constant adrenaline rush. Is all I can tell you, and it was great. Well, the show itself felt exactly the same. It was much more fun to do in Hollywood since that's where I live, and I made some nice friends in Orlando. But it's always feels you want to know where you want to go where everybody knows your name, to quote another famous sitcom. Um, Possibly more famous than ours. So it was great to be back in LA. But otherwise, yeah, the show itself was exactly the same. Yeah, that took some time. Although we know just from our live audiences and how enthusiastic they would be. Um, especially when Kenan and Kel came out for their curtain calls before. I'm just like they were the Beatles, as they might as well have been the Beatles coming out there. Um, I knew that they were very, very popular. How long it would last, I didn't know. I'm really happy that they rerun them and that they're on wherever fine TV is found, that people can still watch them. Yeah, but I had no idea. The best part though was for me was that I had at that time very young a niece and nephew in New Jersey, and they came down to visit me in Florida when I did it. But also, my eldest brother has two daughters who are my nieces out here. So they were the perfect ages to watch Kenan and Kel. They would have seen it even if Uncle Danny wasn't on the show. They would have been watching the show. So they came to the set and they were in the live audience almost every week. Yeah, just overall memories, just working with the guys, working with Kenan and Kel was just a lot of fun because they're not always on, which is good. But they're just really nice people, and it was really great to work with them, and as the rest of the cast. Teal Marchand, who played Kenan's mom, and Ken Foree. Ken and I hung out a lot, especially when we were in Florida. We'd go do things, and we found a couple of friends to go do things with. We were like a little foursome, two gals, two guys, and we would just go out on the town, just have some fun. So, but my favorite episode, I'd say, was one, I forget the name of it, but I played Chris's brother. So that was a lot of fun to shoot. And we did it in front of a live audience. I kept having to go back and forth. They wanted to shoot it real time. So just like, an audience would see it. So it took a lot. It was maybe not as fun for the audience because I have to go change to become my brother and come back out and then go back and then come back out. And they had to set the cameras up in order to do the trick photography to have us both in the same frame, which they, of course, put together in post-production. But I was really happy with how that one came out. So that was probably maybe one of my shining moments. I think also there was another episode where I think I'm thrown out of Mother's. I forget why, but I go to live with at Kenan's house. No, was that the same? No, it wasn't the same episode. Anyway, I've become a real pain in the butt when I'm at Kenan's house. So, but yeah, those were my favorites. I do. Do you want to wait a sec? I'll show it to you. Okay, I'm back. Here we go. Here it is. Da, 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 da. There we go, Rigby's. I saved that from the last show. I felt that Kenan and Kel had run its course. But yeah, with Kenan and Kel, I think after the fourth season, it felt time to finish it up. It would have felt odd, let's put it that way, to come back for a fifth. I would have been happy to come back for a fifth season, but when they announced that this was it made sense. Plus, I'm not sure if they do this anymore, but at that time, Nickelodeon would only run for years of any given show, whether they were successful or not. So I think we knew it going in that we were going to be a 4-year run. It was a chance to really play broad, like Chris. There was no holding back with Chris. I didn't have to go, oh, was that too much? But no, because if he's mad at Kenan or he's mad at Kel for drinking the orange soda, it's Instagram at Dan Frischman. I have a fan Facebook page, Dan Frischman. Frischman, and I love when people check out my the magic stuff at whodani.com on YouTube.